talk about last night's European action. Manchester United 3, Bodo Glimt 2. The first win of the Ruben Amorim era. In his first game at Old Trafford, David, he said that he now feels like one of them, the Manchester United people. He is the belonging one.
Yeah,
we've always got to tag them somehow, haven't we, since Mourinho said all that nonsense. What did you make of the game? What did you make of Manchester United?
Oh, that was interesting. I thought it was a few shades of the Ten Hag era in that first half.
It's going to take a while.
Yeah, it is. It was a little bit back and forth, but I think the Man United settled down in the second half. And I think they probably could have put a few more on towards the end of the game. But from where I saw, I thought he was kind of testing them to say, right, okay, let's just keep the ball a bit, learn to see out a game. Just have a bit of composure, because they've not been very good at that at all. So I thought that was interesting as well. And I thought his comments on Højlund were interesting too, in that he perhaps takes too many touches with the ball. And he needs to be a bit more clinical, he needs to be a bit more just tunnel vision when it comes to striking.
Is he saying that the first goal he scored, he should have taken it first time?
Yeah, exactly. not good
that
enough.
was a lovely goal, to be fair.
If that is a conversation he's had with him, because that was a brilliant use of... it's almost like a parkour style goal, wasn't it? Where you as few moves as possible to get to this destination, which Zinedine Zidane was always very big. It was a brilliant goal.
I would call it Marcelo Salas-esque, Jim.
Sure, right, but that goal does sound like he's listened to that advice, right? And maybe that's oversimplifying it, but what a finish! It was just superb. That's what he's there for, isn't it? And to see a flash of that is this early on.
What did you make of his
encouraging?
What did you make of his gladiator celebration after his equaliser?
I'm all for it. It's relevant. It's in the cinema at the moment.
It's relevant.
It's in the cinema at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Gladiator 2.
Yeah,
you didn't know that, did you?
No, I did, because I've seen it. I thought you were suggesting something from the ancient world was relevant.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, get with it, bruv. Well, look, he's just having a good tea. He's just living his life, David.
Indeed, he is.
Yeah, get off his back, everybody, for crying out loud. I know what you mean, though. Manchester United, I thought, as they finished the game, creating chances and all that, but that vulnerability was still there. You thought Bodo Glimt could nick one right at the end to get a famous result. Obviously, they didn't, but there's still that doubt there. It's early days, of course, but he really has to eliminate that.
I was going to say, I think that mental block's probably still there. They've had so many results with Ten Hag in terms of where they've lost games in the end, or they've drawn so many of them, and they need to get over that and to be seen as a team who can keep the ball, because it's been impossible for them at times to do so.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed Mason Mount starting though, Jim. Yeah, as we know, Ruben Amorim, to quote him, he said, "I love this kid."
Yeah, and he had an impact, didn't he? He hit the bar, was very unlucky not to score. And I think it's a positive thing for him and the team, actually, just for a bit of freshness. There's something different. Like it's a very, very obvious point of difference in this new era, and a thing as well that I think will stand Ruben Amorim in good stead among Man United fans is how openly annoyed he gets with them. When they went 2-1 down, he was like, "Oh, fucking believe this? Are you serious?
This would never happen at Sporting."
Exactly, yeah. But that's how the fans feel a lot, and I think actually, maybe this team needs a bit of that.
I quite like the cut of Amorim's jib. I
do as well. He's very open, and I was discussing this with somebody, and my mate who's a Man United fan, he was, I think he's perhaps a bit too open.
Yeah,
in interviews, in terms of, is he giving things away almost to the opposition?
Indeed.
But I think he's given the players a few home truths, and I think he's already seen a few things that perhaps Ten Hag didn't, that fans did.
Yeah.
And he's already addressing those. He's already targeting those. And I can imagine what it's like in training as well.
Do you think that's why Ed Sheeran interrupted him? He thought, I'm sorry, he's being too open here. I'm trying to save him from himself.
Yeah, I think that's right.
It must have been it, Jim. It must have been it. Well, look, Manchester United, they won the game, of course. It was a shame for Bodo Glimt because, they're a great story, actually. Yeah. I mean, it was not that long ago when they were down in the doldrums and having to wash their own kits. They didn't have a kit man, for crying out loud.
They're the dominant team in Norway now.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. Nearly a famous result for them, but Manchester United win. Manchester United won, and Andre Onana still had to make some saves, but they got there. They got over the line. And
he made one of them outside the area.
Well, he did, yes. What do you reckon?
I'm surprised that he got away with that. VAR looked at it and said that it was accidental and therefore they didn't want to punish it. But I mean, that speaks for itself, I suppose. But I would want at least a free kick if that happened against
I think
my
you saw
team.
Manuel Neuer the other night as well when he came right out of his goal, and I don't know whether you saw this. Neuer came right out and delivered an unbelievable switch of player. So I think Onana quite fancied that.
Is that what it was?
I want to get involved.
Yeah, you expect Neuer to do that, whereas I think if you were Manchester United manager, you might say, look, Andre, let's
Yeah.
Nothing silly.
Nothing silly.
Which other goalkeepers have you? Because this VHS says Rene Higuita on the side. I don't want to be. You put that away. Well, look, Manchester United, they won the game, and the fact is, look, it is early days. When we say, that's still there, the vulnerability, of course it's going to be there. It's very, very early days. But a win is important, and it just builds a little bit of confidence. I don't think there's any pressure per se, but of course there's always pressure being in a huge job like that. And so ultimately a good win. There is a little bit of pressure coming from another part of the club. They've become the latest Premier League club, of course, to abolish concession tickets. Apparently only 3% of supporters will be affected, as 97% of tickets have already been sold for the rest of the season. But the Supporters Trust have said there was zero consultation on the price hike. And Manchester United announced this week that ticket prices for children and older fans has increased to £66, which is rather a lot of money. And so they're in the spotlight there, along with Everton, Liverpool and Manchester City, and fans from those clubs will be protesting against rising ticket prices at Old Trafford and Anfield this weekend, because obviously Manchester United, they do host Everton. What are your thoughts on this, David, when the Premier League, again, does a new sort of TV deal and it's worth, 12 in the region of £12 billion and all this kind of stuff? We know that ticket prices are not the revenue generator that they once were in terms of the percentage of a club's wealth and so on. It seems like fans are saying enough's enough. But I mean, look, more power to their elbow. I just fear that unless people stop going to games, nothing will change.
No, that's it. You have to. I think you have to kind of vote with your feet here. Otherwise, fans are going to continue to be exploited, and clubs do, and the league continues to exploit fans terribly so. And it's, whether it be with tickets, whether it be football shirts or anything like that, fans are just a commodity in that sense. It is. It's poor. It's sickening, because the clubs are getting richer. People aren't getting richer. People's lives are becoming harder, but they're still seeing everything increase. In their lives.
Yeah. It almost feels like wallpaper now as well, doesn't it? Fan protests about ticket prices. We see it so often in the Premier League. We see it in Europe as well, and the prices keep going up, and it's
and over the inflation. People might say, "Well,
exactly.
it's more than inflation."
Over inflation, and as you rightly point out, sort of obviously matchday revenue is important to clubs because the margins are fine in terms of what they're trying to spend, and spend every penny they can to improve the team, etc., etc., etc. But they are not as significant as they once were, as you say. Like there's a tiny fraction of the actual revenue they make is from that, and obviously kids' tickets going up as well. Kids aren't going on their own, are they? So parents who are taking kids to games, it's much more of a squeeze. United are also considering cutting their annual budget for its Disabled Supporters Association from 40 grand to 20 grand. It's like
40 grand to 20 grand.
I just don't understand how you're meant to progress your fan base as well. So if you can't afford to take your kids now, then your kids aren't going to go to live football, and then they're going to find another outlet. So they're not going to be there in the game in 20, 30 years. And you're losing that link of where what probably a lot of people had, where they went to their first games with their parents and where their families. You're going to lose that as well. I can't afford to take them there. Obviously, there's alternatives. You can go non-league or anything like that, but it's understandable. Some kids want to see the superstars play or anything like that.
And that should be accessible. That is the joy of it. That's why it's the most popular sport in the world, and that's it's historically been a very, very working class sport in this country, and its accessibility has been part of that. And I think Man United are far from the only club doing this, so it's not necessarily a direct criticism of them, but we are seeing more and more and more that clubs are treating their fans as customers. But
this has been the case for many, many years. I just can't believe that the lessons that were learned during COVID have been completely forgotten. We all saw
it's money though.
That
I think
football without the fans is just not even close to being the same.
It is. I just think football without the fans. It's just a throwaway buzzword line.
Well,
it doesn't mean anything to any of these clubs at all. It's just a cliche line.
They look at spreadsheets, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
It is a cliche line, but we learned it during COVID. Like we saw it. Like that's what happened. And it was like, oh, blimey, people were saying, on your interactive service, press this button and you can get in, was it noises from the game FIFA and all that kind of stuff, because it was like, we really need this. But unfortunately, and Luke's made the point several times on this pod, as we all agree, unless fans stop going, but then you're asking fans to say, well, that thing you've already paid for.
Yeah.
And the fact is, a lot of people will come in, and I understand, not just tourists, but people who have managed to find a ticket, they're very, very excited to go. I think you've got to sacrifice a little bit of something for the potential long term game here, and I think that's exactly it. I think
But there's no long-termism involved, though. I think everyone's short-term. If you've got owners, they're kind of looking at what they're going to do in their era. So
I'm talking about the fans hoping for a long-term game. Because if you saw, say, every season ticket holder, and again, I know that's not going to happen, but it's Man United. What does Old Trafford hold? About 75,000, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say even 30,000 people didn't go.
Yep.
Yeah.
It would be visible. It would be a talking point.
But do you not think those tickets will get taken up anywhere by tourists or whoever?
Well,
there's always the Man United's got a waiting list for their season tickets.
Sure, and I understand what I'm suggesting of supporters here. Like I've no bones about it. You know, if someone said to me, right, don't, I want you to stay away from Fulham or whatever. But that is the most powerful thing that fans can do.
100%.
And it's difficult, and it's not on. I'm not saying, oh, come on, fans, if you don't do it. It's on the owners of this, and it's horrible that we have to talk in these terms to say that you'll have to do something like this.
It might have to be that if a protest like this was to take place, that it was league-wide, that everybody would collaborate.
Yeah, there needs to be
a weekend where
absolutely.
No one goes. So everyone will think, well,
it would be.
If we do that, we put our team at a disadvantage. If everyone takes that bullet,
it would be great to see.
Effective.
Yeah, exactly. Don't go to the game, and also just don't buy merchandise as well. So much money made from merchandise, and these people are getting ripped off. There's people with 2 and 3 kids having to buy 3 and 4 shirts a season for them, and it costs a lot of money. So stop doing that as well. If you stop supporting these clubs, if you hit them in the wallet, then that is when you start hurting.
Well,
these clubs.
it's the only thing, sadly. But it would be very, very difficult to coordinate. But I mean, look, any effective protest is difficult to coordinate and does mean people sacrificing, sadly.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? And unfortunately, football fans have been pushed around. And I would say that is the most powerful thing that they might do. Might not work, but I don't know. And there's even talk that some owners are really sizing up the whole £30 cap for away fans. They're going to eat into that. So yes, I mean, I know the Football Supporters Association. Of course, we were talking about how we were nominated for one of those awards. That's not a plug. That's closing. This is not me subtly trying to get that in. But they are big on this kind of stuff. They try to lead on the whole cap and for away supporters tickets and so on. So perhaps maybe they could come up with something. I don't know. Right, let's go back to the actual football, if we may. Spurs 2, Roma 2. Also in the Europa League. It was an entertaining encounter to mark Claudio Ranieri's return to England. Mats Hummels, I'd forgotten he'd gone there.
Yeah.
With the equaliser in the 91st minute.
There's always a
Snatching
few that
point.
you miss in
There
the
is.
summer.
Yeah.
And I was delighted to see Mats Hummels pop up at Roma.
Yes, indeed, yeah. What did you think of this one, David? I mean, Spurs should have been more than one goal up. Of course, they were pegged back 1-1 and then 2-1, but they did have chances, especially in that first half.
Yeah, they had chances. They didn't take their chances. They also had an opportunity to see the game out, and they didn't. I'm constantly bemused by this with Spurs and with Ange in terms of how they fail to control games, and their game management is always a bit off, always a bit poor. They need to slow games down. They're very, very naive still. And, I noticed Ange said yesterday again, I don't want to watch that. I want to be exciting. I want to give the fans something to enjoy. Completely understand that sentiment. But I think fans also really want to win games as well as see a nice product on the field. So, yeah, it was a little bit typical from them in that sense, what we've seen on Ange.
Yeah. We saw Fraser Forster in goal, though.
We did, yeah. He made a really good save in the second half, didn't he? And going into what you're saying, David, like as much as Spurs had a lot of chances in the first half and were quite dominant in that sense, Roma really, really came back into it, and Spurs let them back into it. They had a lot of shots in that second half.
Oh, that El Shaarawy goal. That was a shame that was disallowed.
Promising
That was a lovely one.
Stephen El Shaarawy.
Yeah,
It's incredible how he's still going. How's he not 38 or 39? I feel like he's been around forever.
Is he going to fulfil that potential? He's one of those guys,
Definitely.
you're right. Dybala's a little bit like that as well, I think.
Yeah.
Still, obviously, different profile of player and so on, but I do feel that a little bit as well. I mean, look, Spurs will be fine. I mean, they're ninth in the this group stage of the Europa League. They will progress.
Yeah.
And I mean, they really could win this tournament, but there is still that slight naivety. We spoke about that Manchester United in sort of different ways with Postecoglou, the way he plays. As I say, as a neutral, I enjoyed this game, and it was great. You look at them in this trophy, in this Europa League campaign, you think, if they're just a little bit canny, they really could win it, but I'm not sure that they will.
They do just need a bit more savvy, and to win a tournament like this, you do need that.
And it would be massive as well.
Yeah, it'd be huge.
Postecoglou has won a lot of trophies, hasn't he?
He has.
And he said earlier this season, when someone put it to him that you you've said you often win a trophy in your second season, and he corrected it, didn't he? He said, I always win a trophy in my second season.
He did, yeah.
I think that I like that.
I did as well. It was big talk.
Kind of translate a level of, it's going to kind of transmit a confidence to those players.
Of course, it is easier, and I know he's been at other places than Celtic, but it is easier to win a trophy, especially in the second season with Celtic.
Yeah, this is a different level here. And look, that Roma team's had a disastrous season as well. Yeah. They haven't been impressive at all. That should have been a game that Spurs saw through. Spurs are a lot better side than Roma.
Yeah, I mean, you were cynical of Ranieri's appointment, weren't you, when you spoke about on
I thought it was just ridiculous sentimental bullshit, really. But you know what I mean? It's like they did it with Dybala when they kept Dybala. I won't go into it, but in Dybala and some, they had an opportunity to get his wages off the bill, but they've kept him around as well. It's just silly.
I take your point. It is nice to see Ranieri being all animated on the touchline, though.
From here, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're not having it, David?
I don't know. I don't really care.
No. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. He could have gone back to Leicester, but we're going to talk about Leicester's. He could
have just retired, gone off to a nice house in Sicily or somewhere like that and chilled out, and then he's back. He's in charge of his shit team. Just enjoy your retirement, man.
Dilly ding, dilly dong, Dave. Come on. Well, anyway, Spurs. Yeah, as I say, the 9th in the Europa League. They take on Fulham on Sunday, so no points for them. Yeah. And I'll tell you which side I'm referring to as them on Monday.
Yeah, well, I think it's a good test of Spurs' recent league form, this, isn't it? Because obviously the win against City was absolutely blistering. I suppose this result in the middle of that is probably a little bit annoying because of the nature of them not managing to see the game out. But I think, Fulham have obviously come off the back of a bad result against Wolves, which is affected by the red card. But they can play some really, really nice stuff. I imagine this will be a really open game where we might kind of see that the best and the most naive possibly of Tottenham and maybe of Fulham a bit, because they were caught 4 times last week.
Well, yeah, I mean, as you say, there was a sending. Fulham's problem is being blunt up front, a little bit blunt up front. Even though Raul Jimenez has scored a few, that is their trouble. And
what's happened to Muñoz? I was going to say he went through.
Well, he did last season. But Jimenez is the preferred forward. Yeah. Jimenez is a better forward.
Yeah,
Muñoz obviously had that patch, as you say, which was incredible. And Muñoz does. He may be brought on last 20, something like that. He's still very young, though.
Yeah.
And so Jimenez is the preferred forward, and Jimenez is now. I mentioned the other week, he feels like he's back. All that kind of stuff that seemed to affect him from that. I was going to say
there was a few doubts whether he could still go into 50-50s.
All that business. He's putting it about this season.
Okay.
He is. As I say, Raul Jimenez of old. I mean, he is getting older, of course, but as I say, his goal return hasn't been too bad. But Fulham are just that little bit blunt, but maybe they will get chances. Yeah. Adama Traore late on in the game on the break. Just make sure to pass it before you, But the trouble is nobody can keep up with him. That's the problem.
Sure. Yeah, I think, obviously, with all due respect to Fulham, this is a game that Spurs should be winning, isn't it?
Up yours. Yeah, I mean, look, Spurs are a better team, and so they will be the favourites.
Yeah, but they drew against Roma, so because the Roma game is case in point. So I think this is the level, and you just touched on it there. There's like a little level what you want from Spurs to go up and just where they beat City, and then the next week after they go and get another win in Europe, and then they come back to the Premier League and they put something together, and they're clearly getting up to that top level.
But they've got these times where they lose to Palace and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, well, at some point they have to stop doing that, and this seems like a game they'll be targeting.
All they want is consistency, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
And consistency seems to be the hardest word. Unless you're Chelsea in the Europa Conference League. They bloody love it, don't they? They beat Heidenheim 2-0 on the road. Actually, though, to be fair to the German side, they actually gave Chelsea easily their best game in the Conference League. I mean, Chelsea have just been steamrolling teams, which is understandable because even their third string is better than the vast majority of sides in there. And they run out 2-0 winners and maintain their perfect start, of course. But Heidenheim gave a good of a. They should have scored. In fact, you could argue maybe they could have even got something out.
Yeah, I mean, they had the ball in the net twice, both offside and both quite clearly offside. But
so they don't count then.
So Jim. They don't count, but it shows that they had some sort of attacking.
Well, the chances
in the game.
Chances they created where the goalkeeper made some saves.
I was going to say Jorgensen might have had a shout for man of the match for Chelsea.
Indeed,
he was really impressive.
Yeah,
and Sanchez might be looking over his shoulder a little bit now. That's a bit of pressure on him.
Yeah, I just wonder those Chelsea players came off that pitch at the end of the game and go, "Oh, I just quite enjoyed that. We actually had to work for that."
Yeah, Chelsea's Europa Conference League B team is a fascinating beast, isn't it?
I mean, it's ridiculous. Like in Nkunku, I mean, you mentioned Højlund's first goal with a touch and finish. I mean, that was beautiful as well. But when you got Nkunku and Mudryk among the goals,
yeah,
it's just
Sancho in there. as well.
Sancho impressive again. I thought Sancho and Mudryk actually showed a lot of awareness defensively. They're showing they're starting to understand that kind of wing back to make sure that they have to take up the whole flank and not just sit around up front and dally about. So yeah, that was impressive from them.
Yeah, it really was. And the stark difference between Chelsea and every other side in that competition. Again, Brassel tried to pour cold water any romance about West Ham winning it a couple of seasons ago. I mean, if Chelsea were to win this, it would be the most obvious, easy pick.
It's such a unique situation. We might never see this again in the Conference League, because obviously Chelsea.
This is easier to call than Celtic winning the league.
Of course, yeah, completely, because it's a huge club who'd had a kind of slip in status because of quite unique circumstances. They seem to be closer to being back to where you would expect them to far sooner than anyone expected.
Yes.
And they find themselves here.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we're ever going to see a club of this size and quality in the Conference League again.
Well, we might not. But actually, I think this has probably helped Maresca, because he really can field a second string, and those players get minutes and they get European football. Okay, I understand this is not the Bernabeu and it's not the Parc de France or all this sort of stuff. But they're still guaranteed, and they know as well as everybody else, is that it's a demanding schedule and the games come thick and fast. So to constantly give players who feel that they should be maybe starting games or would want to start games in the Premier League, actually you can start them here. I think it does go in his favour. At some point, yes, they will be like, okay, fine, we've put another poor side to the sword. I want to be starting at Old Trafford and Anfield and all these sorts of places. But in the early stages, I think it's, as I say, it's going in his favour.
It's good. So if he does get any injuries to his first team, he's got players who are hot coming in.
Match
They're not
ready.
cold. They haven't just been sitting around and had no minutes.
Totally.
And it's a good proving ground for some of these players. So, and look, like you say, it's a long season, and he'll use this opportunity to. And it seems the players are taking on his ideas really quickly as well now. Well, they seem to be really behind what he's trying to do with that club. So yeah, it's onwards and upwards for them at the moment.
And Kunku's got 11 goals this season. Obviously, most
out
of them
of
in Europe.
nowhere. Yeah, it's incredible.
What a thing to have in reserve.
Yeah, because you got him and Jackson both banging in. Because Jackson seems quite consistent as well.
Yeah. Speaking of injuries, Reece James not expected to play again before the end of the year, and this has been going on since December 2021. I mean, this is 3 years of him being constantly injured and out. I can't imagine the frustration that he is feeling and so on. But he's such a great player, and we want to see him back there. So that was very, very frustrating. Before we move on from this game, did you see that the Heidenheim fans held up a banner saying, "Let's get Brexit done, send Chelsea home tonight," with the big image of what appeared to be Boris Johnson. So very unwelcome all round from from my point of view. So there we are. All right, everybody. Coming up after this, we hear from another body language expert.
How are you feeling after it all? Yeah, all right. Yeah, good. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's something. I'm glad I've done it so far. We followed your progress, of course. It was the American Smooth. What are we doing next week? Do we know
I'm
yet?
doing the salsa to Fireball by Pitbull. Is it Fireball by
Yeah, you got it.
Pitbull? Yeah.
With the kids.
Yeah.
Of course it is, Merce. Of course it is. Fresh from doing NFL coverage.
Yeah.
As well. I'm not into NFL, but you are, David. And how did Merce get on?
I thought he was quite good. Yeah, he was a good laugh. Yeah,
He was knowing as well.
Yeah, he
Much was made about.
He's got a genuine love for it, and it came across really well.
Yeah,
he wasn't just
exactly.
plonked there and kind of said, "Oh, here, say something." So he was. So yeah, he was decent.
Yeah, good old Merce. Right, this Sunday, it's the big one, Jim Campbell.
It is.
Liverpool versus Man City. So as an Arsenal fan, you admit that this is the big one. Got him, David. Got him, didn't I? If Liverpool win this game, they'll go 11 points clear of Manchester City. Can we say that there's a new voucher in the Premier League? We've had the Man United voucher. You've got your Southampton voucher.
Yeah. Sheffield United voucher last season, of course.
Absolutely right. Expired now, sadly. Is there a Man City voucher?
I think Liverpool will be looking at it thinking, yep.
Do you reckon?
Rip that out of the voucher book.
I still think...
Do you think they're that vulnerable at the moment? That this is a gimme? That's effectively what you're asking, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that actually this game... if they get pumped, obviously this will look silly, but I think there's something to suggest that this game is actually the game Man City need, because just keep on doing what they do against teams that are inferior to them. It's obvious how to get at them, and teams have been doing that. Now, as I say, with the Spurs game, it wasn't a 4-0 game. Man City score earlier in the game, blah, 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 blah. But we saw what happened at Feyenoord, so they're clearly vulnerable at the back. Pep, surely, David, is not going to just play the same way. He has to adjust it against Liverpool. And I think we will see Man City tightened up, because you can't say, oh, come on, Feyenoord in the chat, we should win that, or oh, we're better than Spurs and they're vulnerable on the game. Oh, we'll do that. Surely this game, we will see I'm not saying he's going to go, flipping Jose Mourinho or anything, but it'll be a little bit more bespoke, perhaps, than what we've seen in recent weeks.
I genuinely don't think so.
Do you not?
No, I think he's too far gone with it. He's a very stubborn bloke. I think he's got his style. He's very tied to his philosophy. I think he'll continue to play the way that he wants to play. I don't think he'll change it now.
I think it's a personnel thing as well. I think
but
Liverpool will win comfortably.
But personnel thing, I understand that. But you can play slightly deeper.
Sure,
you can. He's still got an awful lot of talent at his disposal. You're not having it, David.
You can't do that. Pep can't do that.
He's still going to do the same thing.
It's not in his makeup.
And when I say the same thing, I appreciate. I'm talking about Pep Guardiola here, and they've won 4 Premier League titles in a row. So I'm not saying, that dickhead, he doesn't know what he's doing. Hear me right here. I just think if they go to Liverpool and playing a high line with Salah on form, and depends who he picks, slot of course, but you think of Diaz and all the players they have.
But I think even if they do try and adjust, you got to look at Liverpool's form and their momentum. I think they're going to have too much for them, especially at Anfield. We talked on Wednesday about how, actually, if there's anything, or I talked on Wednesday about how if anything can blunt your momentum, maybe it's having to play Real Madrid. But they've swatted them aside like they were just no one and nothing. So they are going to go into this with such high confidence on the back of a really, really loud, amazing emotional night. And they're still going to have that energy. They're going to be bringing that energy into Sunday. So I think this is this just looks like a Liverpool win.
Yeah, that energy you speak of made Rio Ferdinand say Liverpool were like Rottweilers on the pitch against Real Madrid. We did a Ramble Reacts, of course, to it, David, and if you want to hear our thoughts on it, and they won't surprise you, you can listen to that one. But they were brilliant. Oh,
they were absolutely fantastic in every sense, defensively, in attack. I thought some of their one-touch football was brilliant. The way they swept up the field in 1, 2, 3 passes, their quick transitions, absolutely brilliant.
Shame for them that Conor Bradley and Ibrahima Konate may miss the game. They are being assessed, so we will see it, especially after Bradley's performance.
Yeah.
Alexander-Arnold will be available, though, so they do have him.
Yeah, the depth.
They've got options.
It's part of what makes them so good. The depth's really, really impressive right now, so they could put out any 11 against City, I think, and still be competing at a high level.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, a body language expert has revealed that there are various signs that Pep Guardiola has, and I quote, no idea how he's going to turn things round. The mind boggles. Human lie detector and body language expert Darren Stanton has claimed, human lie detector and body language expert, has claimed that actions such as touching his head, flashing fake smiles, thank goodness he said fake smiles, and sitting in the fetal position reveal he's no longer in control. Has Darren been peeking through his bedroom window at night? What's going on here?
Well, I don't know. If a man's sort of rocking back and forth in the fetal position and scratching his own head to pieces on live TV, is it that much of a stretch to suggest he's not doing so well?
Do you need to be an expert to pick up on that?
I don't know that you do.
Well, according to Mr. Stanton, Pep buries his head in his hands, and it's the opposite of a power stance, which would be hands on his hips and feet spread apart. So again, another
Tory
lesson.
Party conference stance.
Indeed, another lesson Guardiola could learn from Sam Allardyce, presumably.
Yeah, he needs a bit of Big Sam there, clearly.
If Guardiola, imagine that. He stood on the side, hands on hips, feet wide apart. He's never done that.
No, he's never. I was going to say he's always lively on the touch.
Yeah, exactly.
So
a guy who's always exuding the type of energy that suggests that he's a bald fraud and he doesn't know what he's doing hasn't done too badly in the game.
No.
However, this does seem a little bit of a strange one. Have you seen that Rodri is targeting a return to action before the end of the season? Is that because Pep is pleading with him, do you think?
Can you just get better?
Yeah.
Look at my body language.
Yeah. Have you ever... there's been such affirmation in him being crowned the Ballon d'Or winner since he got that trophy, really. It's been quite incredible. Coming up after this, Ruud van Nistelrooy is set to take command at Leicester City. Hello, everybody. Now, Brentford versus Leicester City. Well, we currently, at the time of recording, we haven't had full confirmation that Leicester City have announced Ruud van Nistelrooy. That's expected later on today. But whatever happens in that press conference, if suddenly Ruud van Nistelrooy gets nervous and runs off, or he is indeed confirmed, like we will expect him to be, he won't be taking charge of this game, Jim Campbell.
I think one of the really interesting things about this appointment is his pedigree is kind of unknown at the moment. Obviously, he won the Dutch Cup in his only season with PSV, and they finished second in that season. Then he kind of left because he cited a lack of support. So that seems pretty promising, doesn't it? But it is a very small sample size in a different league a few seasons ago. So I don't really know if we know what we're going to get from Van Nistelrooy. I don't know if Leicester know that, but I do think the type of figure he is and the standing he has in the game is likely to be a boost to the players in what is in danger of becoming a very, very tough season. And it's a good time to get that boost.
Well, clearly Steve Cooper wasn't the right man for the job.
No, I don't think he was the right man, and from everything I've gathered, I don't think he was the man they really wanted anywhere.
Potter was the one.
It seems Potter was the one. It seems Potter was the one they wanted. They wanted somebody who's an extension of the brilliant work that Maresca did.
Yeah.
The players clearly miss him so much so that they're making signs for him. So they're hoping that Ruud's an extension of that, and he can get back to bring that sort of vibe and that sort of confidence back that they had in Maresca.
Yeah, I mean, you would. Okay, again, we are going to try and scrutinise that season at PSV when he was there, and his PSV side a bit more attacking than say your average Steve Cooper side, but then of course Steve Cooper, Nottingham Forest when they're in a relegation scrap, Leicester back in the Premier League.
Very different.
It's not quite one of the big boys.
You're one of three sides who are going to win the league in Holland.
Indeed, yeah, and so it's difficult. I think that he will be a better fit than Cooper because Cooper clearly was not, and I think that also as well, as we often say, and the old adage is, you don't want to be the guy after the main guy. Mm-hmm. You want to be two people after the main guy, if you see what I mean. Because Maresca was loved there. The style of play was completely ingrained in those players. I mean, as you say, the banner, which they may well have, created in that club in Copenhagen, or it could have been that was a Leicester City supporters club in Copenhagen. We just simply don't know. Yeah.
Who have a friend called Enzo and he's not there. So
Indeed, there's all sorts of possibilities, David. But the fact is, the players, it's fair to suggest, do miss him, old Maresca. And to go from that style, I mean, it's difficult to go from that, to play that style in the Premier League, of course, when you've been doing it in the Championship. However, I think the days of you have to have a complete rethink are not there. There used to be that stat, didn't there, that the teams who go up and play the most direct football are the ones that tend to stay up, probably because Neil Warnock was in charge of them. Whereas it's not quite as clear cut now. It is difficult, and I've spoken many times, when Fulham were a bit of a yo-yo side, they would go, you win every week or most weeks in the Championship, and then suddenly you're doing a different thing. However, some managers, Marco Silva being one, have proved that actually you can be a bit more front-footed these days as things are changing if you've got a quality manager. Maresca is a quality manager. There's no two ways about that, as we're seeing. So to go from this style of play, and I think the players probably thought, right, let's try and do that. Let's keep that going. Yes, we're not going to be winning the league and all that like we did in the Championship, but let's keep that going. So for Cooper to come in and basically go, sorry lads, that's not me. It was jars a bit. I understood it from when it happens at the time, but then as all this sort of stuff is coming out now, you think, okay, so a bit of pressure on Van Nistelrooy in the sense that he's got to hit the ground running. He has a squad of disgruntled players that he needs to win over. And he's just come. I mean, maybe him playing them twice as Man United manager is going to help him because he's seen how to line up against them. And he beat them twice.
Yeah, they must be sick of the sight. So welcome that someone completely understands
the
their
stuff you did against us. Can you do that for us against other teams?
Yeah. Can you stop doing everything you did?
Yes.
And do everything I did?
Yes.
It's a kind of weird set of circumstances for Leicester as well, which I think maybe people haven't been as sympathetic towards as they could be. Which is that how often do you see a team lose their manager as they're promoted? It's a real rarity, and it's a difficult thing to contend with. Very, very difficult to get any sort of kind of smooth transition there.
It is, yeah. Did you see that Leicester's owner has reportedly had showdown talks with the players after that Christmas party in Copenhagen, just hours after they lost to Chelsea, of course. So, yes, as you say, Enzo, I miss you, read the sign. Did he say, I don't like text language, you only put a U for you, please spell it correctly? Is that what the gripe was, maybe?
If ever there's a point to come in and have a full, like, spring clean, this is it, isn't it? It's like, well done, lads. You've got to hopefully the lowest point of the season, the weekend before I come in. It's actually probably a good thing if you want to put a very positive spin on that.
Yeah. Now, they are away to Brentford, of course. And if you are Thomas Frank, you're playing against a side who will have caretaker manager Ben Dawson in charge. This is no comment on Ben Dawson, of course, but he is a caretaker manager, a side who are not doing that well, bit disgruntled, etc., etc. Surely Thomas Frank's going, right, lads, here we go. Nice and direct as always.
Yeah.
Bombard them. I can't see anything other than a Brentford victory here, David.
Yeah, I think Brentford will win as well. I think that, what's really impressed me about Brentford this season, actually, is just how they've coped with the loss of Tony, with Vissa and Mbeumo just really coming together to form this brilliant duo. So, yeah, it's good what they're doing. And, I think they'll win this one.
Yeah. Christian Norgard has had his red card at Everton rescinded, by the way. Perhaps because Richard Keys called the decision a joke in his blog.
Well, he does influence the game.
Yeah, evidently. Before we go to Jack's Encyclopaedia, gentlemen, talking of new managers, Frank Lampard to Coventry. How about that? They've officially unveiled Super Frankie Lampard as their new head coach. It's his first job since he was Chelsea interim last May. But Coventry host Cardiff City on Saturday. And like I said before, we don't really know that much about Lampard as a manager still, I think. Lampard is very clear that he wants to be a success as a manager, and he's very determined on that. And he said things like, people have been saying to me, well, why are you doing this? You could work in the media, you could work all other places. And he was like, no, this is the challenge. That work is easy, he referred to it as. And I suppose compared to management, I don't think that's too unfair a comment. And he said, people are saying, well, you could just be at home, you could just be living your life. And he's like, well, what am I to put my slippers on at 46? As I say, I admire it that he's having another go. And I think with Coventry 17th in the Championship, not doing very well, Robbins obviously did amazing things for that club. A lot of fans were unhappy. He's going to have to contend with that the fans are unhappy with him. It's a bit like when Wayne Rooney went in at Birmingham City and they were unhappy that their manager had gone. It's elements of it like that. It was in different clubs and all, but there's a touch of that. But I think Lampard, I think this is a good move for him. It's a proper established club, big club. Nearly went up, of course, recently to the Premier League. They're now, you would call them an established side back in the Championship after years of all that unfortunate stuff. And Lampard now can, I think, let's hope he really implements his ideals and philosophies.
And I hope he gets the time to, because you're right. I still don't think we know exactly who he is as a manager and what that style and what that philosophy is. And there are leaps to be made before we can see that, because first, he has to get Coventry into being a mid-table side for a bit, and then from there maybe you see if they can sort of start bothering the playoffs. There's a long way to go in the season, in the Championship in particular. We see this a lot. There are always teams that are struggling for a bit and then they motor up it and they time it well and they can have a high finish. That has to be the aim for him, doesn't it? And
it's what Robbins did well. They punched well above their weight. And I think I can understand the fans. And I thought Robbins had enough credit in the bank to get a little bit longer there.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and that will be another challenge for Lampard, won't it? Because I think a lot of the Coventry fans thought that as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Does Wayne Rooney have any credit in the bank at Plymouth Argyle? Speaking of English managers in the Championship.
I don't think so. I just hope he's got enough to make it to Boxing Day, so we get the old Lamps Rooney showdown.
Yeah, that would be good. Well, Plymouth, of course, lost 6-1 to Norwich this week, meaning they're just 2 points above the relegation zone. Rooney said, I could probably put the under-18 team out and they wouldn't concede 6 goals. So I'm very disappointed, angry and frustrated. The next 24 to 48 hours are not going to be very nice for the players.
Oh, God. Imagine
dear.
Wayne Rooney telling you the next 2 days are going to be horrible because I'm going to make them horrible for you.
Yeah.
No, thanks.
I know. Mind you, it could all be a lot worse, of course. Portsmouth's game against Millwall was called off on Wednesday night because there was a power cut at Fratton Park 10 minutes before the kickoff. Fans sat in darkness for almost an hour before the game was finally called off.
Bottled it.
Miserable.
Someone's cut the power deliberately. They bottled it.
Maybe.
Now it's time for this.
Dean Smith also says you're an encyclopedia of football.
A what?
An encyclopedia of football.
I don't know what that means.
Yes, it is time for Jack's Encyclopedia. Last week, I won the Intercontinental title by beating Peter 2-1. So have that, everybody. If you are...
Not putting the belt on the line today, though, Jim.
No, I'm not. We're beltless today.
Okay.
It's an exhibition match.
An exhibition match because David's here.
Yeah, exactly. So, simple game of categories. If you've not listened before, if either of them go too slow, I will play Gary Neville having a drawn-out orgasm, which will leave 7 seconds for either of our glamorous contestants to answer. So, David, as you're here so rarely, you're going to start. And the first category is the 20 active Premier League players with the most number of Premier League appearances.
Oof.
Right. Okay. Vardy.
Jamie Vardy. Correct.
Kevin De Bruyne.
Kevin De Bruyne, you say? There's no Kevin De Bruyne. I'm
Bloody
surprised by that
hell.
as well.
That's a poor start from me.
That's round one to David. So
Flipping Nora.
I'm not going to read out all of those other active Premier League players because there are simply so many of them, and we will move on.
That's my fault that you're not getting those names. Sorry, everybody.
We're going to go straight to category 2. Marcus,
Yes.
you go first. Hopefully with a better showing. Every goalkeeper to save 5 or more Premier League penalties since the 2006-07 season.
Okay. 2006-07 season.
5 or more Premier League penalties.
Petr Cech?
Petr Cech. No.
Bloody
This
hell.
could be a whitewash.
Emi Martinez.
Oh.
Emiliano Martinez. Oh, Marcus is back in the game.
Oof.
It's a tough one, this. It's a lot of penalties, isn't it?
It is a lot of penalties. David De Gea.
David De Gea, he says. Correct.
Get in!
wow, I'm
my
surprised.
first, my
He's
first
usually
right
bad at
answer
saving
of the
penalties.
game.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a shock.
So, David, over to you.
David Raya.
David Raya. Oh, it's 1-1.
Tell you what.
So you could have had Jordan Pickford,
Jordan Pickford.
Kasper Schmeichel.
Yeah.
Some surprising ones in there. Manuel Almunia, Thomas Sorensen, Brad Friedel, Ben Foster, Jussi Jääskeläinen. That's just some great names. Adrian. Surprising.
Oh, that is
So, yeah.
some good names.
There are some good names in there. Joe Hart. You'd be disappointed with that, Marcus.
Yeah.
So we're on to round 3. So
A very low scoring.
Very low scoring game.
Ratio. Sorry, not low scoring, but
it's Mourinho-esque.
it is a bit. Yes.
It's one for the purists.
Yeah. So, third category. Every
go.
Scandinavian to make 5 or more appearances in the Premier League this season. So that's Danish, Norwegian, Swedish and Finnish players that make up that number. So, David, over to you.
Norgard.
Christian Norgard, of course.
Joachim Andersen.
Joachim Andersen is there.
Haaland.
Erling Haaland is
Bloody
obviously
hell,
there.
This season.
This season.
Martin Odegaard.
Martin Odegaard is obviously in there. There are some big names in there still.
Why am I blanking? Ericsson.
Christian Eriksen is indeed in there.
Bloody hell.
I mean, you might have just said a Scandinavian name there. You could have meant any Eriksen, but I'll let you have it. Gonna need something from you soon, Marcus.
Yeah, you are. Kulusevski.
Kulusevski is a great shot, and he is obviously there.
Bergvall.
Lucas Bergvall is there.
It's Torres to give Chelsea a place in the Champions League final. The headline has been written.
Thomas Sorensen.
David Cartlidge wins.
Finish him.
Oh, well, there we are. There's your bespoke little.
Little Mortal Kombat one.
That was a very poor game for me. Who did I miss?
Kick yourself. Alexander Isak,
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Elanga, Jens Kajuste of Ipswich Town, Jesper Lindstrom of Everton, Jorgen Strand Larsen, Christopher Ayer, Mads Hermansson, Mads Roslev, Matthias Jensen, Mikkel Damsgaard, Rasmus Højlund, Sander Berge, Victor
Sander
Christensen,
Berge.
and Yasin Iyari.
Should have got Sander Berge.
I mean,
Should've just gone through
Højlund
the-
and Isak as
Should
well.
have just gone through the Brentford squad.
Do you know what? I
You
was
would have literally won
trying.
the
I
game.
was trying, and I just had Wissa and Mbumo in my head. That's all. I was like, piss off, you two. Well done, David. You've got
you.
yourself a famous victory there on the exhibition. No belt.
We're lucky no belt was on the line.
Very lucky. Very
It would
lucky.
complicate things for Jimmy to the B.
It certainly would have done.